Hello everybody, Travis here welcoming you to a special edition of Tpull's Corner. This is the fourth and final video talking about the 2024 rotation. We've done the other three sets and now we're getting into the last and final set, Streets of New Capenna. And this is one of the sets that they delayed rotation for a year. We had extra time to play around with it, and I'm still going to miss some of the cards that we're losing. So I'm going to break my rules. Instead of a top 10 or top 12 list, we'll probably end up between 15 to 20 cards by the time I'm done. This turned out of all four expansions, I think this was my favorite expansion, which I didn't think would be the case when I saw the initial setting, the crime noir theme, which I like crime noir themes, but usually in my films. I wasn't sure how that would translate in terms of the background world building for a trading card game. But it turns out there's a lot of good designs in here, and I think this is probably, they did a really good job on this deck, on this expansion. So let's go through, and I'm going to list my favorite cards, the ones I'm going to miss the most. And I think there's a lot of good choices here. I'm going to start with the board wipe, Depopulate. You see I only have one copy of it. I was under a self-imposed moratorium for the first 3 years of putting out videos. I did not burn my wild cards for a number of different reasons. That moratorium is over now. I canceled it with the beginning of my 4th year of putting out videos. So I will, if I get around to it, if I see the need to use the card and I want more copies, I'll go ahead and burn more copies if I want these days. For example, my other favorite card that we're going to lose in white, Elspeth Resplendent. I absolutely adore the fact of being able to put on these counters for the +1. I almost never use the -3 or -7 ability. I just cared about the +1. I want a choice of flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilance, and being able to put it on any target creature I want. That's all I wanted. I would have played this card if the -3 and -7 didn't exist. That said, every now and then you're able to pull off the -7 and your opponent insta scoops because they can't take out 5 3/3 angels with flying. But yeah, gonna miss that card actually. This made a lot of my Super Friends decks. It made the cut. And Depopulate, of course, one of my favorite board wipes. And that's out of all the board wipes. I mean, we're gonna lose Path of Peril. We're gonna lose Vanquish the Horde. We're gonna lose by invitation only, and we're gonna lose Depopulate. And we're gonna lose Farewell, which I liked, although some people got tired of. So that's 4 or 5 board wipes that we are losing. Those were all, I mean, there's one other board wipe I like, but I think out of all the existing board wipes that are left, there's only one other one that I really prefer. And yeah, probably just, I included a board wipe in each of the expansion sets out of the 4 we're losing, out of one of the cards that I'm going to miss the most. These were just key utility cards. I actually stopped making a lot of board wipe decks just because I tend to veer towards board wipes. And I think the meta environment changed a little bit where they were not as effective too. So I haven't quite been very board wipe heavy in a lot of my decks lately, but always had a soft spot for them. And yeah, Elspeth Resplendent, one of my favorite cards. Okay, what else do we have in here? Let's move on to blue. A card that probably doesn't get much airtime, turns out to be one of my favorites. Errant, Street Artist. I made a deck to explain just how to use this card. It's a 0/3 defender. Why would you want haste on a defender? Well, it's flash, so you can bring it in on your opponent's turn, and if you have 2 mana, you can tap it, copy target spell you control that wasn't cast, choose new targets for the copy. It can be kind of confusing, but if you've got a copy of another instant, then you can tap this for 2 and get yet another copy. So you could maybe cast a lightning bolt 3 times if you were able to arrange it. There are a number of interesting copy spell tactics. I've made a couple of different decks with this in it. Sometimes they end up being 250 card decks, and they don't always work. Often, the opponent will knock you out on turn 4, turn 5 with their mono red aggro or something. But if you do have the time to set it up and get enough energy, the results are mind blowing. The things that you can do with this card, it's hard for me to explain without actually dragging one of those decks out and showing you. I absolutely adore this card. I love the potential of this card. I don't think enough people explored the potential of this card. This is probably out of all the blue cards, I'm probably going to miss this one the most. I really like the design of that card. I think it was very clever. Let's see. There is one other blue card that I am going to miss. Let's go see which one is... Oh, Cut Your Losses. That's the second blue card I'm going to miss. I'm a big fan of milling. The fact that you could double down with this with a casualty 2, you just sacrifice a creature with power 2 or greater, and then you get to copy the spell. And again, because that's a mechanic, right? So we just talked about street artists, Errant Street Artists. If you created a copy with the casualty mechanic, you could tap Errant Street Artists, create a third copy of this effect, and you have 3 Cut Your Losses aimed at your opponent, and they're milling half their library 3 times. So they're down to what, like maybe 8 cards max? Just with casting this and being able to copy it so many times. This was fun. This is such a clutch card. This was fun to include in the Hitotsugo and Carry decks, so you could put it on the top. You could deal your, they get rid of Hitotsugo and Carry, you deal 6 damage straight to your opponent's face, and then they still lose half their library. So, awesome card. Definitely gonna miss it. Let's see, I wonder if there was... If I hit the craft button, we'll go through it. I never did get Sanctuary Warden, so I can't speak to that. If Sanctuary Warden is one of your favorite cards that you're going to miss, let me know. I did not play with it unless I stole it from my opponent. Other than that, I never did craft it. I never did actually have a chance to really have a deck to play with it unless Wizards gave us a deck to hang around with it and play with. Same with All-Seeing Arbiter. This is probably a card I would have liked. Never did craft it, never did get around to it. And same with Even Score, you can see. That I probably would have liked that card too, right? I never saw anybody using this card either. Okay, so that's blue. Let's go on and... oh, you know what? I missed one. Let me go back. Wiretapping. This has the Hideaway. This is a cycle of cards within this set using the Hideaway ability, 1 for each color. So when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, you exile 1 of those cards face down, and then everything else gets shoved to the bottom of your library, right? Here, whenever you draw the first card during each of your draw steps, you draw another card. Then if you have 9 or more cards in your hand, you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. This was a card that I really loved to team up with Triska Decaphile, which was back in the Innistrad Midnight Hunt expansion, the first one that we lost. And so I identified Triska Decaphile as one of my favorite cards. I would usually include at least 1 copy of Wiretapping in a deck with Triska Decaphile. Just awesome card draw capability. That card draw advantage was often all you needed to either come from behind or just if you're already got an advantage, it cements the advantage. And sometimes it helped me get that alternate win for Triska Decaphile of starting with 13 cards in your hand. Because even though you would get to 9 or more cards in your hand and you would cast the card that's under the Hideaway 5, the enchantment would stay and the effect would continue for the rest of the match. So out of all the Hideaway cards, this one was my favorite. But I think the Hideaway cards was a nice design cycle for this set. Let's go ahead and move on to black. And there's some good cards in here. This is well-designed type stuff. I think... Oh. Let's say here, Extract the Truth. There was a point where Wizards came to the conclusion that black actually did need to be able to have to do something to tackle enchantments, and that it just really wasn't fair for black to continue without being able to have something somewhere on occasion, especially in Neon Dynasty where the enchantments were so heavy. So here, target opponent sacrifices an enchantment. A lot of times you would get this and you would just not wait for them to cast an enchantment. You just use it as discard, choose a creature, enchantment, or planeswalker from their hand. So half the time you just use it that way. But if I was playing black, this was a very key utility card that I would have in my deck, especially if I was playing mono black, to try and get a handle on opponent enchantments. So gonna miss that card. I'm not sure that there's a handy replacement for it. Here's Shadow of Mortality. We're losing this card. This is a 15 cost card. If your life total is less than your starting life total, it costs X less to cast. So if they do 10 points of damage to you, it only costs 5. It doesn't cost 15. You can get a 7/7 creature out for 5 mana. I loved this with my Hitotsugo and Carry decks. Deal 15 points of damage straight off the top. There's a number of other decks that deal with where you care about the full mana value of the card, the full cost of the card. And, oh man, did I abuse this card for the last year and a half. It is in an above average number of decks, and there's usually a good way that I'm able to cheat it out or manipulate things to get extra value out of it one way or the other. So yeah, I'm gonna miss this card. There's really not a good replacement for it right now, I don't think. Next, Cut of the Prophets. This I hardly ever got to use, but it was great to pair up with Shieldred, where you draw X cards and you lose X life. Well, Shieldred gets you 2 life gain for every life point you would lose with the card draw. So also it's an X spell, which I love X spells, and there's a number of ways that we were able to take advantage of X spells in the last couple of years. So again, these 2 cards side by side, some of my favorite black cards that we're going to lose. Let's go into red. Call in a professional. Players can't gain life this turn. I use this in ranked a lot. Damage can't be prevented, deals 3 damage to any target. Just my preferred damage spell out of all of them. I think out of all 4 of the sets that we're losing, I'll miss this removal spell the most. It's one of my favorites. Red surprises me in Streets of New Capenna. This might be one of my favorite cards of all time. Might be my favorite card in Streets of New Capenna. Might be my favorite red card out of all 4 sets we're losing. The Devilish Valet. It's a 1/3 with Trample and Haste. It's got the Alliance mechanic. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. I made a playlist. We went through the entire color pie where we'd have like mono red, we would have red and green deck, we'd have a red and blue deck, a red and black deck, and so on and so forth, up until a 5 color deck. We went through the entire color pie. We made like 6, 7 different decks based around Devilish Valet. I wasn't done. There's more I could do with Devilish Valet. I'm going to have to go back. I made one at a request of a friend using a nice little Krenko Goblin in Historic that worked out great, and a certain helm that allows you to duplicate creatures when it's sitting on top of one of them. And they're all fun decks. This is just one of the most fun designed cards I've come across. It's not in my favorite color. Red is not normally my favorite color. I love this card. This might be, out of all 4 expansions, if I was going to make like a top 4 or 5 list, this might be the one that I'm going to miss the most. What is your favorite? I'm wondering. There's another card. It's not a creature. It's an enchantment. Arcane Bombardment. There's one other person on YouTube who I think loves Arcane Bombardment more than I do. Almost every deck that they make has Arcane Bombardment in it. I don't know what they're going to do after rotation. They're going to have to find a new replacement, a new favorite card. We're losing Arcane Bombardment. Because that one channel has so many Arcane Bombardment decks, I did not make as many videos using this card as I could have. But I probably made 3 or 4 decks with Arcane Bombardment on it. It is an awesome spell. There's so much value. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, you exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then you copy each card exiled, and you can cast any number of the copies without paying their mana cost. So, if I had Prize Fight in the graveyard and For the Family in the graveyard, it would randomly select Prize Fight. It would go under here. I could cast it anytime I cast an instant or sorcery. I could then also cast Prize Fight if I had a valid target for it. Then if I cast For the Family and it went into the graveyard, and it would get zapped out. Say I did a 3rd instant, Prize Fight would still be under there. It would grab For the Family at random. I could cast both of those in the same turn for free. This is one of the most interesting cards in terms of providing extra value, and one of my favorite things in all of the game is being able to cast spells without paying their mana cost. Notice also, you're copying the card that's exiled. You can cast any number of copies. The one thing that I didn't do, that I always wanted to do, was take Errant Street Artist and combine this with Arcane Bombardment, and all I need is 2 extra mana, and I can cast my regular instant. Then Arcane Bombardment grabs something and copies it from the graveyard, and then I could copy it with Errant Street Artist. So I don't think I ever made a deck quite like that. But if I had one more day, if they granted me an extension on the recall or on the rotation, I would go ahead and make that deck. That to me is a very fun idea for a deck. Yeah, I'm gonna miss Arcane Bombardment. There's nothing else that's kind of out there like it right now. It's really one of a kind. Green has a lot of fun cards. They're very well designed. There's some that have more utility than others. I think there's some that you kind of include, like this one. You could build an interesting deck including Glittermonger, but most people didn't. But there are ways to make use of it. There are cards that, like Bootlegger's Stash, it's an expensive card, but in the right deck, could be very, very useful. It could be very overpowering. So there's a lot of interesting, fun cards. I think if I had to include a favorite, if I had to list a favorite green, it has to be Titan of Industry. The 7 mana bomb. Maybe a lot of people are tired of it. Maybe they're ready to see it go because it was overused or whatever. I love the concept of it. I like the artwork of it. I love all the different options that you had. You get to choose 2 out of 4 things. It's already a 7/7 with Reach and Trample. And there's so many things there's so many options there. It's like a Swiss Army knife. And it looks like an Empire-sized Swiss Army knife. So for me, there's nothing that I don't like about this card. So yeah, I think I'm going to miss it. Let's move on to the multicolor cards. I'm going to miss a Planeswalker. Ob Nixilis the Adversary. Maybe just for the sound wave alone, all of the different things that Ob Nixilis says when you're casting a card. I'm going to miss hearing those sound files. This is Casualty X. So very unique, right? A Planeswalker with Casualty X, where you could sacrifice a creature with power X, and then you get to cast a copy of Ob Nixilis, which again, try comparing that, adding that in with maybe Errant Street Art to see if that works. But so if you sacrificed a 5 power creature, you could get your regular 3 loyalty Ob Nixilis and a copy that had loyalty 5. And there's all sorts of shenanigans you can do with the -7. Target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. It's fun to team up with Shieldred that way. Maybe make your opponent draw the 7 cards and lose 2 life for each card they draw. That kind of thing. Depending on how your card's set up, maybe you can mill them out that way too. So there's all sorts of fun ways to use the ultimate ability, the -7, to use it either on yourself or your opponent to win the game. And you could always create the Red Devil creature tokens and use them as chump blockers as well and stuff like that, let alone the +1, which sometimes just getting out 2 copies of this and +1ing them both and running your opponent low on life before they're forced to discard, that's a surefire way to win the game too. So just a lot of options with this deck. A very good character that Wizards of the Coast has here with Ob Nixilis. I like the creature itself, the character. And yeah, the sound waves are impressive. It just, all of those combined made this one of my favorite Planeswalkers to use. Lots of fun, powerful cards in here that we're going to skip past, like Rafine, that people might have been used to. You can see there's a couple like Tolas I never had, so I never got to play with that. Don't know how good that is. Hostile Takeover, never had that one. There's a couple of cards that I don't have to complete my set yet. But here's a favorite. Lord Xander the Collector. Cost 7. It's a 6/6. When he enters the battlefield, opponent discards half the cards in their hand rounded down. Whenever Xander attacks, defending player mills half their library rounded down, so he was a favorite for me to put in my mill decks. And when he dies, opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they control, also rounded down. So this was just, I really enjoyed this card. I'm going to miss this card. He's sort of like a comfort to know that he was always around whenever I would play blue, black, and red. There are some times where I would play like an all-green deck, and I would still have this card in there and have a way to get him out. That's how much I liked him. Even if I didn't have the colors, I would still play with him in the deck. That's how much I like that card. Let's move over to the... I'm skipping a lot of good cards, right? But I am going to go ahead and skip the rest of the colored cards to go for artifacts. Even though maybe honorary mention to Broker's Ascendancy, I had a lot of fun with that card. Luxior, Giada's Gift. If I had to choose one piece of equipment, this is a legendary equipment. Equipped creature gets +1 for each counter on it. Equipped permanent isn't a Planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. The loyalty abilities can still be activated. It only costs 1 mana to equip the Planeswalker. I have a couple of different Super Friends decks, and this is a card I'll also use in Historic to good effect. That you pump them up, you throw the sword on them. It looks like a sword anyway. But you equip the Planeswalker, and suddenly you got like a 6/6 or a 7/7 creature, or 8/8 creature that can attack. There's all sorts of fun and interesting combinations that you can do with this and Planeswalkers specifically. So yeah, this was probably my favorite legendary artifact in maybe all 4 of the sets. And let's go ahead and give a special mention to the lands. This allowed us to play 5 colors. Try lands, and even though a lot of people are ready for these to go, I'm ready for these to go in a way as well. But we had 5 of these sacrificed lands, 1 for each of the crime families, and you could go get a basic 1 of 3 of the lands that matched their particular gang. And now it's kind of irritating with one of the land destruction recycling strategies that's out there, especially with the doppelganger spell. Mostly because it can just take, your opponent has to take a long time to get it running, and it's kind of boring because there's not much to do other than wait for them to play the land, sacrifice the land, bring it back, play the land, sacrifice the land, go get another land, and you're just yawning. But these are very useful cards. It's going to be going into an interesting expansion. Like, we're losing both of these kind of mana-fixing type cards. Do we have enough resources, or do they want us to not play 5 colors anymore? Is that because Wizards kind of changes the parameters, and they kind of steer the game to give us variety from year to year. So as one expansion fades out and a new expansion fades in, maybe they want to focus on monocolor play for a while. Maybe they want to just focus on 2-color play for a while. It felt like they gave us a lot of resources for the last couple of years to play 5-color, and I think we're losing 2 very good land resource cards that, one of my favorite things to do is play these 5-color cards, and I'll go ahead and make an entire deck. Even if I only have 1 copy, like a Meeting of the 5, I'll make an entire deck focused around this 1 copy of this card just to play with this card because it's a 5-color card. And so that was a lot of fun for me. So maybe some of that's going away with us losing these mana-fixing type of land cards. So I think those deserve honorary mention. I am interested in how many people are ready for these to go and how many people are going to miss them. Because I feel like I'm split 50-50 myself either way. But I will list, except for the lands, I will list all of the other cards that I mentioned in this video in the text for the YouTube text box so that you can see them. I am interested in what you guys think, so if you're new, remember to like and subscribe. If you're a returning viewer and you're always around and you've already subscribed, remember to like the video. And let me know. I don't do these kind of things that often. I'm usually doing actual gameplay. So if you appreciate this type of video, this is kind of something new for me. I haven't really done this type of thing before. But I am very interested in hearing what's the 1 card or your own top 10 list of this expansion for the final one, Streets of New Capenna, which I think actually was the best of the 4 if I had to choose, which, again, surprised me. I didn't expect that. So let me know which one of the 4 was your favorite expansion. Let me know, out of the Streets of New Capenna, what card does it hurt for you to leave behind that you're not going to be able to play list, especially in light of the new expansions that have come out, the Bloom Barrel set that's come out. Maybe there's a card that you thought, oh, if I could pair that card up with this card, that would be awesome. And it's like, no, that card's leaving. I can't do the combo now unless I go to another format. Yeah, definitely. These are the type of videos where I'm really interested in your experience and what you liked and didn't like about the sets. So, and since we're having a rotation, these are leaving. This might be your last chance to leave a comment on this type of thing. So we'll go back to finish off our series after this of the rest of the pre-made decks that Wizards created for us. But I wanted to put out these 4 since rotation is upon us and we're losing these 4 expansion sets. So again, let me know how you thought of this, and we'll go back to the pre-mades next time. So thanks, everybody. Have a good one.